now that your friends are gone.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another fucking writing podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Dempsey. I wanted to start with a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. All 2 of you. Yeah, I know it's not a huge start, but it's something, and it's really awesome. Like it certainly doesn't even put me into a positive net on this whole endeavor, but it's pretty amazing to get support. And right now, like, I personally know both of these people, like from way back when in my life. And so part of, like, if you support, you get a handwritten letter from me. And so I'm writing one of these people whom I've known for a long time. And it ended up that, like, what I was writing about and thinking about was just, you know how they say that you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends? Well, I think that's garbage. I don't think it's true at all. Like, I think it's more normal in my experience that the people who have actually stuck around in my life are rarely those you would expect. It almost seems like those people who you want to bring in closer, and like even that you invest more time and energy and thought power into trying to secure and get closer to and get to know better, it almost never works. Like, I can look back over, like, the vastness of my past and the people who still populate most of that story, and the characters I find there are surprising. They're shocking to me. And so I really think, like, those who are in your life to continually, like, cheerlead you on and support you and be there for you are a gift. They're not anything that you have any control over, really. I mean, you've got to, like, don't get me wrong, like, friendship is totally a two-way street, and you've got to put in also. But it's just curious. Those unexpected people who are there for you. Today on the podcast, I talked to Shai Watson. You all know her. She is the author of Horror Vacui, Cheap Yellow, Something Vague, etc., etc., etc. I had a really, really fun conversation with Shai. I'm really excited that she agreed to come on and for you all to get to listen. So, yeah, let's get to it.
My boyfriend just got into Northern Arizona University, so it's looking like we might be
right on.
Flagstaff. Yeah.
Flag, whoa.
Yeah, I've never been there. I've been to Sedona.
Okay.
I like Sedona. It's like 45 minutes away from there. But
yeah, Sedona's rad. I'm actually not that far away from both of those places right now.
Oh, really?
I live in southern Utah.
Okay.
In a little town called Kanab. But yeah, I'm like 5.5 hours from or closer than that to Flag. I'm like 5.5 from Phoenix. But yeah, Sedona's like 4 or so. Beautiful areas. How do you feel?
Yeah.
Just like learning all of that.
I'm excited. Yeah. I mean, he's still waiting to hear back from a couple schools, and I'm still waiting to hear back from one thing, but it feels like it's going to be the move that we end up making. I mean, I really like Missoula, and I miss New York sometimes too, but I don't know. I'm really adaptable. I like pretty much everywhere I live. So
yeah, cool. How long have you been in Missoula?
I guess like 1.5 years. Yeah. August 2021 is when we moved here.
Cool. I was there as well back in 2017, 2018.
For
I
what?
just lived there for like just a winter. So I work for the government. I'm a park ranger, and I used to be seasonal. I was seasonal for a long, long time. And so I was up in Alaska for like 13 years.
Oh.
I'd work summers always in Alaska. And I spent a lot of winters there too. Yeah, I wanted to get out one winter, and I had a buddy, like a coworker, and she had lived there for a long time and was just like in love with it. You know, that was kind of her gig in the wintertime, I guess. And she just like tossed out the idea of maybe trying to get a place together, and was like, shit, let's do it, you know? So yeah, we lived over in the Rattlesnake. It was a really cool, like crickety old house, and it was a good winter, but it was like the coldest and snowiest like on record for like umpteen years or whatever. So I kind of missed dodging Alaska stuff, even though I like traveled a long ways to get out of there. Cool. So did you come to Missoula for like, what brought you there?
For the MFA.
For the MFA. Okay.
Yeah, I'd never even been here before we moved here for that. I'm doing the fiction MFA there. It's a good program. I like it a lot. I was maybe going to stay for a third year and do an MA in Lit, but then Kirk got into NAU and, you know, he came with me for my MFA, so I'm going to go with him for his.
Cool, good for y'all. Yeah. Good luck, man. I hope it works out really well. Yeah. It's going to be a big change.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've never lived in the desert. He keeps telling me that it's not really like desert. It's more like high desert, like a little mountain.
Yeah.
Sand and cacti.
There's that too, but he's totally right. Like it has a mountain feel, and they get like dumped on in the wintertime. I think they just got like 16 inches over the last couple of days and stuff. But in the summer, it's really nice. The weather's nice and lots of outdoor recreation, which you have in Missoula too. But you mentioned you're working on your MFA, or maybe you're just finished with it. So I guess describe a little bit of that trajectory in your life. Like what was growing up like? Were you always like a writer? Were you in a family that really encouraged that along? Or were you a black sheep? Like, how did you end up pursuing writing like in a serious vein, I guess?
Ooh. My mom works at Target. My stepdad's a welder, and I grew up in a town of 3,000 in rural Missouri. So definitely not
totally writer's life.
100% black sheep, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My dad, my biological dad, who like, you know, my parents lived like 30 minutes from each other. I saw him, and, you know, he is kind of a poet. Like he, when he was like 17, he like tried to kill himself and went to a psychiatric ward and had this like black bound journal that he wrote like all these poems in. He also wrote hip hop lyrics for like rap groups. He lived in North Carolina. And they're like printed on this like record. He still has it. And like, I don't know, he did all these doodles, and he gave it to me when I was a teenager.
Wild.
Like this journal that he'd had when he was a teenager. And I mean, I'd been writing poetry for as long as I can remember, since like maybe like 5th grade when I got my first boyfriend or something.
Okay. So he like saw something in you that made him give you these things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. And I listened to a lot of Bright Eyes and Modest Mouse and of Montreal and otherwise lyrical music growing up. And that's kind of what drew me to music. It wasn't the instruments or the, you know, like, I don't know how to talk about music. I was just like really into the words. I'd like look them up on, you know, AOL free trial internets that we would have, and would like read along to the lyrics and sing it. And so, yeah, I was always a poet. And after my freshman year at college, where I was studying product design, I transferred to Naropa and Boulder and did writing and kept with poetry. And then I guess a couple of years ago, I started writing fiction. Well, now it's been like 4.5 years, I guess. But so that's...
Cool. So when you moved, you said to Boulder?
Mm-hmm.
Was that the first...
I started taking it seriously.
Yeah. Was that also the first time that maybe like you made it public? Were you sharing much of it in Missouri? Was it like anything you had friends that were encouraged, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'd like read poems to my friends at Drexel in Philly, which is where I went my freshman year and stuff like that. I think I did I do an open mic? Maybe not till I moved to Boulder, but yeah. And then I didn't know about publishing and whatnot until I think it was 2015 in the fall is when through Twitter, I found out about all these indie lit mags and whatnot. And I started submitting things to there. And then I started getting published prior to that, I'd only submitted chapbooks to contests that cost like $35 an entry, and like to big name magazines like Ten House, McSweeney, stuff like that, like places that probably wouldn't have liked what I was working on anyway. I just didn't know there was this whole other world out there. And so my friend Ketch showed me the world. She's like my poetry doula in like 2015. And that's kind of when I went more public with it, or started like, I don't know, cultivating a CV.
I want to come back to that really quickly, but I was just curious, like, were you, when you were, I guess, like a teenager, would you have labeled yourself like a good kid? Were you a bad kid? It was like,
I was not a good kid.
Okay.
At all. But I was sneaky. So my folks didn't know. Like I wasn't like in trouble, you know, but I was like doing drugs and having sex and like sneaking out. I think I got caught sneaking out once and I got grounded for like a month, which sucked. But yeah, I would say I was kind of a bad kid, but I also made like straight A's and was a total teacher's pet. So I feel like from the outside, people wouldn't know so much, but then like my friends and the kids I hung around with did.
Yeah. Do you think that's a product of where you grew up? Like I'm assuming a little bit. I grew up in Oklahoma, and it's like Bible Belt, you know, like there's a lot of pressure and influence around you. And I did a lot of that shit too, and I kind of hid it. I don't know why, but I felt like I kind of had to save face a little bit still. I don't know why, but
yeah, there's nothing to do around there. My friend Mason Parker, he's a writer. He's doing dog sitting for right now. He's from Oklahoma. But it's like, there's like nothing to do except have sex and do drugs and stuff when you're in a town of 1,000 people. And I guess hiding it, I don't know. Well, first of all, my parents were very strict, so I didn't want to get grounded. But also, I was always obsessed with making good grades. And like I was on the debate team and I wanted to go to a good school. I didn't want to fuck up any opportunities. You know, I was like always thinking ahead of like my life once I left that place. So I was really trying to be careful not to cut off any opportunities.
You said something that really intrigued me. I have some younger cousins who are still back in Oklahoma, and they're like totally mired in just like the life that is that place, you know, and they're into drugs and shit too, which is like, I don't judge or anything, but I had a conversation with one kind of recently and was talking about how I feel like the war on drugs is the war on boredom.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, does that resonate? Why do you think so many people in the US do drugs? Like what purpose are they serving?
I mean, I think depending on your age group, it might be different. When you're in, you know, middle school or high school, it might be to fit in. When you're older, it might be because, I don't know, I feel like most of the people I know who do drugs aren't particularly religious, kind of nihilistic, maybe searching for some kind of meaning or transcendent experience. And this also depends a lot on the drugs, right? Like, if someone wants to do like shrooms or ayahuasca or that frog poison, then they're probably looking for something a little more spiritual than someone who's just like smoking crack. So
just trying to escape. Yeah.
So I think it depends on the drug, but I would say just wanting something more, kind of wanting to switch out of, you know, like when we're sober, it's kind of like the default settings when you first get a phone, and when you do drugs, it's like downloading a background and you know, putting emojis for your friends' contacts. Like it's just like trying a different program.
I like that a lot. Downloading a background. That's cool. Yeah. Cool. So to back up, you said like 2015-ish, you sort of got like introed into indie lit, started like getting published. Then you've got a couple of like chapbooks. Is that right? From kind of around that period? Yeah.
I got a couple chapbooks on Bottle Cap from that period.
Oh, nice.
And then there's one like a micro summer one on, here comes Otis, on Ghost City Press. He's chewing his bone, which sounds gross.
Perfect. Can
you hear it? Should I?
I can hear it. I'll totally like turn the volume way up on it.
Okay.
And after production.
It's like it's just like, and then she started eating like a leg of ham and chomping on the meat.
Pulled up a human leg and started eating. Disgusting, Shy. Disgusting. Okay, so cool. So you started kind of rolling in, but like smaller stuff like Chaps, and then I've not read it yet. I totally am about to. But you've got a full length that came out in like 2018 with Michael. Yeah, with Michael Seilinger's press, Civil Coping Mechanism. Great press. He's an awesome writer too. Yeah. So you mentioned Mason. So I've interviewed Mason. He's a buddy now, and he actually threw a huge shout out to you on placing his book with Trident.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you were like instrumental, and I wondered if you have kind of the same placement eye on your own work, or if that's harder to fit your own stuff somewhere.
Well, I want to be in the Paris Review and the New Yorker, and like I'm just looking to have like money and a career at this point in my life.
Oh yeah.
But Mason, I guess, was kind of a special case because Nate, who runs Trident, is like a friend of mine. And when I moved to Missoula and became friends with Mason and Rebecca, his girlfriend, I was just like, Mason is like a spitting image and like everything of Nate. Like they're the exact same person to me. Like they talk the same, they dress the same, they've had the same life experiences. And I was just like, dude, you should submit your book to this guy because it's like a book that you would have written, you know? They just reminded me of each other. And then of course, like Nate loved it and was immediately like, yes.
Yeah. So that was just like crazy serendipity almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to be published in places that will pay me and that will get me a job in teaching now. But I don't know.
Yeah. So how did your book with Michael then take place? And it's a pretty sizable collection. Is it only poetry?
Pretty much. At the very end, there's some, I don't know. I just read the Sarah book by Scott McClanahan, and I wrote kind of hurried account of a relationship that I had recently gotten out of. Like probably like 12 pages at the end or something. It's like this fast prose poem kind of thing. Otherwise, it's poetry, and I got the book from submitting to the contest that they used to have, the mainline contest. Yeah, I didn't win the contest, but I guess I was a finalist because they published the book.
Sweet. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, that's funny. Like I feel like that McClanahan has literally been name dropped in every single interview I've done so far.
You were influential.
Yeah. I need to reach out to Scott just to say like, hey man, we love you. Cool. So why I reached out to you in the first place is because I read Horror Vacui, and there's many things about it that are intriguing to me. And so I don't know where all of this is going to like curveball as far as questions go. But first thing that struck me is it doesn't resemble a normal book, if that makes sense. Because it's almost, well, it's kind of like, or any other kind of collection I've ever seen, I suppose. Because it's almost like tripartite. Right? Yeah. You know, it starts with poetry, and then it has these like living dream sequences. You're totally good.
Yeah. Sorry. I just need to leave. Otis, get out of here.
I'm surprised my dog is totally just chilling.
Oh, go away, motherfucker. God. Okay.
Perfect.
He's so nasty with his bone. Okay.
Oh, gross.
Yes. It's split up into kind of different genres. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm always fascinated by books that pull that off. And I'm still kind of unraveling why your book has these like pretty disparate parts, but they work too. I don't know if that's just a product of like your writing style kind of kept the train moving, or if just like it just happened that all three of them resonated really strongly with me and I dug them. But yeah, do you mind talking a little bit about just like how that collection came to be?
Yeah. So Brian Allen Ellis, who runs House of Vlad, had hit me up a couple times asking if I had any manuscripts. And I had a big Word doc of all the poems I've written since Cheap Yellow. And I wanted my agent to sell the manuscript, but she was working on my first novel at the time and was like, I can't like do that. There kind of needs to be like a couple years between things. And since we're working on your novel right now, you know, and I was like, well, because larger publishers take a while to get something out after they agree to publish it, like a year and a half or 2 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the timing wouldn't have worked out. And she said that if I wanted to go ahead and publish a poetry thing, I need to do it like pretty much then. She's like, yeah, so that the timing works out with promotion and all that, you'd need to get it out in like 6 months. So I just messaged Brian back and was like, okay, let's do this. And I had all the poems and I'd done the journal entries for Newest York for their Quarantine Diaries series. So I had all those. And then I had the Imagined Dreams from another breakup that I was like doing that as like a way to process it. So
yeah.
I was like, well, why don't I just put it all in here together? And it was all kind of, the poems go back a little farther in my life, I suppose. But
yeah, what kind of a timeline exists in this book? Like how many years?
I guess like 2018 to 2020. Yeah, so it's like 2 years. But the Quarantine Diaries and the Imagined Dreams thing were pretty much written like within the same couple months. Wow. So I feel like they just felt like they should go together if they're ever going to be.
Maybe they're sharing an energy or something.
Yeah. Like the breakup was like right before COVID. So I wrote a lot of those right before quarantine happened. And then it was suddenly we were all quarantined. And then I got asked to do the diaries thing. So.
Awesome. And that answers like another kind of question that was floating around because House of Vlad's homepage on their website says House of Vlad Press is never open for submissions. So I was curious. I was curious how that came about. So did y'all just knew each other, or he had just read your stuff, but you don't really know each other?
I think we met at an AWP in Portland.
Oh, right on.
But
cool.
I think we just both followed each other on social media too. I hardly remember meeting. I think it was like a offsite reading that I kind of showed up to, read, and then left. But I think we met there in person or just saw each other. I think we just saw each other. I think I heard him talk about it on a podcast actually. Like, and he said, I don't know. I don't want to say it but yeah. I don't think we actually spoke, but we followed each other on social media. I don't think I realized he was there is like I don't think I realized he was at the reading.
Gotcha.
He saw me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. How has that been since its publication? What are your feelings now?
Good.
And yeah.
I mean, I still like it. I still think it's a good book. Same with Cheap Yellow, which I think is really important. The novel manuscript, I don't really like it. I'm glad that I still like Horror Vacui. I always say horror vacui, even though that's like the wrong pronunciation, but
I like it.
Yeah, horror vacui. So yeah, I still like the book. Sales have certainly gone down since it came out, but it's not like I've ever written poetry in hopes of getting money. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like in the back of my mind because I'm working so much on fiction that I don't think about it anymore as a book. Except when people mention it to me. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I did write that thing. I'm glad you liked it.
yeah, cool. What would you attribute your current feelings around your novel from having originated? Do you think enough time has passed where you've just you don't approach the text in the same way as you once did? Or is it anything to do with just the grind of publishing? Or like, what do you think is going on?
Well, it was the first fiction I've ever written. And since then, I've written a lot more. And I think I'm a better writer now than I was then. So I have some hesitancy about debuting with something that I'm not super proud of. I hear that debuts get more attention and stuff. And that's kind of like how you show up as a writer to the public eye. And
that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. So I want it to be something that I feel really strongly about. And it's also autofiction-y. I've gone through like 18 drafts of it or something insane. And I know. And with each passing draft, I've further fictionalized it to the point where it's kind of based off my life the summer after high school before college. And it's kind of not. So I don't know. I wouldn't recommend anyone ever write autofiction. It's really hard.
I'm
really
currently
hard.
doing it. It's fucking
Really
terrible.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm already halfway in. I'm stuck. That's why I'm asking.
How a lot of people have to start, and that's like why I think I wrote that as my first novel manuscript, because it was like, I don't know what to write about. There was this really crazy summer of my life. I'll write about that. But then it's like, how the hell are you going to make that into a plot? Because life isn't plotted. How are you going to like continue threads of things and, you know, like make it like the shape of a novel? It's just been so difficult to make it work. And I think the plot is kind of off because of that. And
it makes it so much easier to like second guess yourself, or for me it does anyways. Like I just look at it, and the more you look at it and the longer you work on it, the more you hate it. Like it just doesn't, you're like, nothing, no one's gonna want to read this. This is garbage. Like totally horrid.
Exactly. And then this past summer I pulled an Ottessa Moshfegh and used the 90-Day Novel book by Alan Watt to create a novel. And I didn't like use it religiously. I think I jumped in around like day 30 and kind of, you know, but I used it as a structure, the kind of hero's journey thing. And I love the manuscript that I wrote this summer, and it actually feels like a novel. Yeah.
Have you given it to your agent? Like, what do they feel about? Not yet. Okay.
It's my thesis project, so I was actually supposed to meet with my thesis advisor today, but her kids are sick. So I think I'm meeting with her like next week for her to give me her feedback. And then I'm going to do another draft for her and then my secondary thesis readers. And then I think after that, I'll do another round of edits. I've done 2 drafts so far. Like I sent her my second draft. So yeah, I think I'll probably have a completed manuscript that I feel ready to share with my agent in May or something. I want to send her something that's like close to publishable already. Whereas Drive Through, the first manuscript, was not at all close to publishable. I don't know why the fuck she signed me. I had no idea what I was doing. It was really, really bad, the first draft of that book.
I feel like I hear that a lot. Like, I guess that's what agents are good at, is
she's like taught me how to write a book.
But yeah. That's awesome. I, in a way, like, hate to ask this question because it's kind of lame. But you had a book kind of come out right during COVID. You said that some of like the inspiration or just like working through of things, were you working through some things that sort of happened right in conjunction too? And that was like, it really was such just a before and after event. It's insane. I feel like more and more every day I think about like how many intricacies have changed with people and society as a result. Like what do you feel like you've taken out of it? Have you felt changed or anything in the last couple years?
Yeah. When I was living in New York, I felt the need to go out to every single event and like, you know, meet all the writers and show up for everything. And I would have really bad FOMO if I didn't, like, oh, I'm missing out on something like that I need to be aware of. I was super obsessed with being a part of the scene. And then COVID happened and I secretly hung out with people, which is, you know, cancelable.
So bad.
But they weren't like, you know, when I'd hang out with my friends, it's not like we were posting it online or anything because we didn't want anyone to get mad at us. And like, it wasn't as, like I wouldn't see people doing things and wish that I was there or like feel like I had to be there. And I think the social pressures that I was experiencing really lessened due to COVID. And then like I moved out to fucking Montana where there's none of that. And strangely, I don't miss it at all. So I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I don't need to be in New York. I don't need to be a part of every single thing that's happening all the time. I think it's really changed that. I guess like social anxiety would be a part of that. I have less of it now. Yeah, and I guess I realized how much I like to be alone.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely extroverted and like to go out and party and be around people and stuff, but I became comfortable with being alone in a way that I hadn't been before.
Cool. You've obviously like moved around a lot and lived in a lot of different places, and you may be moving again. What do you like? Do you feel like that there's any maybe just like excitement or even maybe like an influence on the moving itself that comes as like a, oh man, will maybe moving like redirect my writing in some way?
Yeah, I've always been an experience junkie, and I've lived more places than you know of. Like, I've lived in like 9 states in the US so far since I was like 18, which is nuts. But yeah, I do like to become a part of a culture and a place and to really immerse myself in it. For example, now that I live in Montana, I've been gambling a lot because there's casinos and all the bars, and it's really bad for me. I'm down like $500. They have these like Keno machines, and I'm so into Keno. And then when I'm playing Keno, I can hear the other gamblers who are mostly like tweakers talking to each other, and I'm like really listening to their conversations. And I don't know. And I never liked nature before. And since I've moved here, I've become like, I go like hiking a bunch, and I've become like an REI member. And like all I want to do is go to isolated lakes in the mountains. And yeah, I think that I enjoy, I don't know, just like plonking myself into different experiences, if that makes sense. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I can be that person. I can be this person. I can be that person. And it does influence my writing because I just have so many more details and different vantage points from which to write. And I love that.
Yeah, no, that resonates. I've lived in 8 different states since I turned 18. So totally get it. And it's kind of influencing the question too. And kind of also like leads into another thing. As I was reading, I saw that California, or kind of maybe even just the idea of California, appears and reappears in your text as like almost like this savior figure. Or like a bookmark in the beginning of a chapter that's just like sat there that could be titled like How My Life Could Have Went or something. That was the vibe I got. What does California symbolize to you, or what did it over the years? And did you ever give a go at living there?
I was born there, and we moved to Missouri when I was a baby. And then I had to fucking grow up in Missouri. So I think I've had this kind of, you stole my California youth. I could have been skateboarding and smoking better weed and listening to cool music and having
way better weed.
Yeah. So I think I'm a little resentful to my family for moving to Missouri when I was a baby, even though they had to. Like no one in my family has money, and there were gang fights in the parking lot of the apartment complex they lived in, and my dad was like having to sell acid to buy milk. So we had to move to Missouri, you know? But when I go there, I guess because my mom's side is Californian and my dad's side is like from Tennessee, North Carolina and stuff. He moved there when he was 18, but I've always felt very at home in California, and I've always felt a sense of family when I'm there, just with the people who live there. And I don't know if it's because like my mom and grandma and stuff are Californians, and that's just kind of what I've been raised with. But yeah, I mean, it definitely felt weird growing up in Missouri as someone being raised by Californians. And I love it there. I really like LA. I like the energy there. Everyone's so laid back, and it's just kind of sunny. And you're just like, yeah, whatever, man. We'll be there around 9 or so. You know, like no one's stressed. And it's very beautiful. Yeah, I love California. I don't know if I'll live there. So the thing I'm waiting to hear back from is the Stegner. I applied to that, and that's in Palo Alto, which is near San Francisco. I don't really have hopes because it's my first time applying, and most people who get in apply like several times. Okay. But, you know, maybe I'll end up there. That'd be cool. Eventually I'll live there, I'm sure, even if it's just for like a year or something.
Yeah, I feel like you symbolically just have to return. Almost.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any other hobbies aside from gambling that aren't writing that like you feel like make life better? I know you said you really like hiking and stuff now, but like, yeah, what gives you peace or joy or
Tennis, swimming, my cats. I'm such a cat mom. I just want to cuddle them all day and all night. What other hobbies? I mean, I really like to read, which I think is, the other side of the coin for writing, but I could just sit with a book and, read it all in one sitting. I've gotten into cooking since I moved here, which is also a complete shift from who I was before moving to Montana. I downloaded the New York Times cooking app and I'm making recipes from there all the time. My boyfriend's constantly saying you are not the woman I started dating. I'm at all. Cause I'm babe, we have to try this chicken kofta recipe. And he's like, who the fuck are you? And I'm like, okay, I'm on
what's going to happen next?
We need to hike here. It's an out and back. So, and he's like, what? But yeah, I like being outside and having the sun on me and floating down the river and talking to my friends. I'm still very, very close with my good friends on the East Coast. We talk on the phone constantly. You're always sending each other voice memos. So yeah, and then traveling. Anytime I get a chance to travel. I went to Portugal in January with my boyfriend. It was wonderful. And then in December, I went all up the West Coast with my friend Scout, who's a musician, and I was just selling her merch because it was Christmas break and I had the free
That's
time.
badass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to talk about or?
Not really.
Okay, that was my conversation with Shy Watson. If you enjoyed it, please go out and pick up her book, Horror Vacui, or one of her other books. She's a really amazing person and writer. And here's the part where I plug more support. So yeah, if you enjoy what I do, it would mean a whole lot if you would go and click like or subscribe or tell someone about this podcast. If you want to support me monetarily, I do have a Patreon account, links in the show notes, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you can start out for as little as $1 a month just to be supportive. There's a higher option, $5 a month subscription too, where you do get one of those handwritten letters from me. I'm going to mail you books from people I have on the show. So anything that works for you. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.